In this video, we're going to look at factorising quadratics. Now remember, quadratic is something that has an x squared in it and no higher powers. So something like x squared plus 5x plus 6 is a quadratic, or a quadratic expression. We already know how to get to these from pairs of brackets. So for example, if we had x plus 2, x plus 3, we know how to expand this by multiplying those two together to get x squared, those two to get plus 3x, those two to get plus 2x, and finally those two to get plus 6 at the end. And when we simplify that, we get x squared plus, or 3x plus 2x is 5x plus 6. So whenever we have a quadratic, we might be able to factorise it into two brackets. And if we look carefully, we can see a relationship between the two numbers here and the numbers in the quadratic expression 5 and 6. If we look at the more general example, x plus a, x plus b, we expand this, we get x squared plus bx plus ax plus ab. And we can factorise the two terms that have just x's in them here. We get x squared plus a plus b x plus ab. And what this tells us is the coefficient of x, the number multiplying x, is equal to a plus b, and the number by itself is a times b. So knowing that, we can work backwards to find out what a and b are inside the brackets. So let's have a look at some examples. The first example we're going to look at is x squared plus 7x plus 10. Now we know it's a quadratic, so we know straight away it's going to go into two brackets, so we can write our two brackets. And we know we need an x in the front of both of them to give us the x squared, so we can write those in as well. Now, the two numbers have to multiply to make 10 and add to make 7. So numbers that multiply to make 10 are 1 and 10, or 2 and 5. And the one of those that adds to make 7 is 2 and 5. So we have 2 and 5. So we get x plus 2, x plus 5. Let's have a look at a second example. X squared plus 7x plus 12. Again, we know we've got to go into two brackets. We know there's going to be an x at the front of each of those brackets to give us the x squared. Now they need to add to 7 and multiply to give 12. So once again, we can list the possibilities to multiply to make 12. That's 1 and 12, 2 and 6, or 3 and 4. And we're looking for the ones that add to make 7, well that's 3 and 4, so we get plus 3 plus 4. So x plus 3, x plus 4 is our factorised form. Third example is x squared minus x minus 6. Now this one's a bit different because it has some negative signs in it, but we do it in exactly the same way. We know we've got two brackets and we know we've got an x at the front of each of them. We know the numbers multiply to make minus 6 and they add to make minus 1. So multiplying to make minus 6, we could have minus 1 and 6, or we could have 1 and minus 6, or we could have minus 2 and 3, or we could have 2 and minus 3. Now they have to add to give minus 1, and the ones that add to give minus 1 here are 2 and minus 3, so we get 2, which was positive, add minus 3, which was negative. So our brackets are x plus 2, x minus 3. The next example is x squared plus 2x minus 8. And once again, we know we have two brackets here. We know they both start with an x because we've got an x squared. And now we're looking for the two numbers that add to make plus 2, but times to make minus 8. So multiplying to make minus 8 could be minus 1 and 8, or 1 and minus 8, or minus 2 and 4, or 2 and minus 4. And the ones of those that add to give plus 2 is minus 2 with plus 4. So inside our brackets we get x minus 2, x plus 4 as the factorised form of this quadratic. One final example, x squared minus 8x plus 15. Like all the others we've seen, we know it's going to go into two brackets with an x at the front of each bracket because we've got an x squared. Now we've got two numbers that multiply to make plus 15 but add to give minus 8. So multiplying to make plus 15 could be 1 and 15, or it could be 3 and 5. But the minus 8 gives us a hint here. There's a negative sign. So there's also the possibility that we have minus 1 and minus 15, and minus 3 and minus 5, because when we multiply two negatives together we get a positive answer. So now we've got all four options, including two negative values, and we're looking for the ones that add to make minus 8, and the ones that make minus 8 are those two. So it's minus 3, minus 5. So x minus 3, x minus 5. A few quick tips for the signs. If we go back to our first examples, if both signs are positive in the quadratic, both signs will be positive in the brackets. If the second sign is negative, there will be one of each, one positive and one negative in the brackets. If the second sign is negative, there will be one positive and one negative. If the second sign is positive, but the first sign is negative, then both signs will be negative. So to summarize that, if in the quadratic we have plus plus, it gives plus plus. If we have minus minus or plus minus, both of those give plus minus in the brackets. And finally, if we have minus plus, then that means the brackets are minus minus. It's just a handy hint to help you narrow down your search for what numbers you need to multiply to make the final number. But the method we have seen for all of these examples will work even if you don't remember that red box.